department in to see how we can better work together as a community. Not only that, I partnered with Deborah from Sustainability to make sure that we are all in the future will go, eco, which is very important for us as a city. And so today we're here really to hear from you. Now I have different directors here from the building department. So what I would do, I would ask them to introduce themselves, and then from that point we'll go around the table, and please feel free to talk. Let's just don't waste time, okay? That's what we're here for. So first, this is
I'm Anthony Cruz, Director of Housing, Economic Development and Commerce. This is my Chief of Construction Code, Ray Myers, and my Chief of Housing Code Enforcement, Mark Redfield. Hi.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Pete. I'm sorry, Pete. And Inspector in the back also. Sorry about that.
So now, to start this forum, I had a sign-in sheet also, if you would like to start to, just to open up your concerns. Like Anthony's here. Anthony, tell us a little bit about the building department. This way here, once you start telling us what the building department does, then that may open it up. We can start the dialogue.
I have some things here that I wanted to be able to just, basically read to all of you, which is pretty much suggestions, ideas, and goals that we have for 2014-15. But the process, I'll let Ray basically give you the introduction to what that is.
Again, let me introduce myself. I'm Ray Myers. I'm a construction official. Basically, the role of the building department, or the office of the construction official for the city of Jersey City, or throughout the state of New Jersey, is the regulation of the Uniform Construction Code. The Uniform Construction Code is a statewide code that basically states how construction, documentation, and everything else like that is to be followed throughout the state. It comes down to regulating forms, time limits on applications, time limits on COs, requirements for architectural submittals, barrier-free code, radon code, that type of thing. And it adopts the standard codes that we all follow throughout the state, which is the New Jersey International Building Code, New Jersey International Residential Code, National Electric Code, and National Standard Plumbing Code. There's a bunch of other codes that are involved with, but those are probably the basics. We work within those confines of those codes, and we work within the confines of those regulations. It's hard enough to turn around to work within the confines of those regulations. We have people just turn around and say, well, you told us to do this, but you told us to do that. No, we try to work within that confines. And that's basically it.
I came here just to see what the meeting was about. I'm a building inspector for Jersey City. I've been doing this work not here but for over 30 years. I'm a resident of Jersey City, and it's a very exciting time to be living here and what's coming into our city. And I'm very interested about what the city plans to do about it and work to make it better. I will say this: what makes up a city? It's its people and its buildings. We all care about our people, but we tend to forget about our buildings. And if we're going to protect the people living in it, we have to be able to support those we expect to ensure we have safe building in our city. I go every day out to the buildings, work with people, and conduct the inspections. And I will say this: 99.9% of the people I deal with want to do the right thing out there. They do want to do the right thing. It's a small amount that don't, but most people do. But they need guidance, and they get it as best they can from our office under Ray. But the truth of the matter is, I think more as a city employee and as a resident, the city government is doing the right thing. They're having this meeting and taking a look at our department's functions and what it needs to meet the challenges the city's going to face down the road with development coming. Thank you.
My name is Mark Redfield. I am the Assistant Director for Housing Code Enforcement, and my office's function is to enforce the property maintenance codes for the City of Jersey City. I'm also the Chairman of the Mayor's Quality Life Task Force, so some of those more complicated issues that we see in Jersey City are sent my way, and I assign them as I see fit. I have Ray Meyer's office, the buildings department, the health department, and some other agencies, including police and fire, to assist me in those more complicated types of quality of life inspections. I also, my office's function is to keep an inventory of all the vacant buildings in Jersey City, and the public officer has a certain amount of abandoned properties in Jersey City that we keep. Probably saw a lot of the red placards on the properties that are vacant. Jersey City right now has 910 vacant buildings in our inventory. That's important because the function of the building department, when we do monitor these inspections and we see a change of ownership and work happening, we want to ensure that the buildings department is working with us to make sure the permits are pulled, the plans are approved, and all the things that we need to make our city safe, like you said, is done. So it's a great marriage between our office and the buildings department for quality of life and to make sure the functions and the buildings that are being worked on are being worked on in the proper way they should be.
Believe me, that was the short version, because Mark does a great deal more than what he's saying right now. We'll probably get more into it as the meeting goes on.
Well, I just seen one of our council persons come in, Rich.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks for coming, Rich. He has concerns also. We want to make sure that the people are heard. Now, since everyone introduced himself, I know there was a sign sheet going around. We'd like to hear from you, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot. No, we don't want to sign.
Hi, my name is John Singh. I was born and raised in Jersey City and do a lot of work here. Actually, I'm here on behalf of Stanford, Jersey City. I'm a educator, trainer and educator, mostly in the green, sustainable disciplines. I've taught some courses at Hudson County Community College. I'm the green trainer. My company is the green trainer for the Hudson County Building Trades. We've been working with the building trades to get more sustainable in their practices for the past 4 or 5 years. It's a slow process, but anybody who needs to convince a builder or developer that it is not more expensive to build green and the payback period is less than 2 years, more than welcome to sit down and talk to them with the facts. I have a question for the building department. Has there been any thought or consideration, as there are in so many other major cities in the country, about giving some, expedited priorities to sustainable developers?
So as far as an expedited type of situation, usually when something is filed in my office, it's basically, we have a 20-day business day time frame to get the permit out. We try to turn that around into 10 days. So whatever comes across that desk, the same priority is put across every project that comes along.
Okay. How about the city itself, as most major cities across the country, giving local incentives to sustainable developers?
I think there's been ordinances that have been passed on.
Yeah, and not only that, there's state programs. We get a lot of solar panel installations and things like that.
I understand that there are state programs, but specifically, I know there are actually programs written for that purpose on books. There's a green code. But I don't really think that we let people know about it. You got to dig down and find it on the website. And instead of promoting or advertising, because you would have more developers walking into Joyce's, well, Joyce's at large, I apologize, into the ward you're trying to develop right now and blow away if they knew about the incentives.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of green buildings that have been proposed and done, okay? And I'll turn that over to the design professionals that I know here, because they're the ones that basically are out there putting the lines on the paper for them. And that's purely a function as far as developer and design professional goes. It's not, I mean, we could turn around and say, yeah, there's a green building incentive, go ahead and build your green building and everything else like that, but that's up to the owner, that's a based on economics.
I'm talking about awareness.
Yeah.
Talking about they need to know about it to take advantage of it. I've worked for developers who have absolutely no clue or idea that they exist in Jersey City. That's all I'm saying.
And I wouldn't call them incentives. I would say that I wouldn't call them incentives. There's a green ordinance on the book. There's actually a document that had come out of the redevelopment agency, a green guidelines for developers, I believe, that was never really completed or had a lot of sort of bookmarks in it that talked at some point about incentives, but that wasn't really sort of closed around what the ordinance was suggesting, which was really only a suggestion. It wasn't a set of incentives or any mandates whatsoever. So if some of the context, and I'm coming from, my name is Deborah Italiano, by the way, Sustainable JC. I'm coming from the hope that maybe what we could do is move more in the direction of greener, energy efficient buildings, because everybody thinks that's a good idea. So,
well, Deborah, I don't want to cut you off, but I think part of this forum is to let's sit down and see how we can do this to go forward. So these ideas, I'm quite sure what we will do, we'll take these ideas in consideration and we'll see how we can make it work.
I can't mandate a building be built for you.
But
that would be as far as legislated here, okay, as far as ordinances go.
But also, our planning department basically, shapes that up also.
yes, I was suggesting that John's question is an interesting question.
No, it is. It's a good point. You have something to say?
Well, the gentleman brought up there, other municipalities have set ordinances. The purpose, the councilwoman put this forum together, is to bring everyone together to talk about it. If you know of such examples and ordinances that we may not be aware of, maybe you want to forward them to the city to review to see how they can apply and be utilized here in Jersey City.
We have a sustainable green committee, don't we?
Yeah, I actually think that step one would be publicizing your own green codes, which do exist. Step two would be, let's look at some others that are successful, such as Hoboken. Keep it in the family, keep it in Hudson County for now. But, I mean, there's thousands around the country where actually, and I know it's part of the legislative process, the code is written, okay, and then followed. And all codes across the country are actually becoming much more stringent for energy efficiency.
I just wanted to point out really quick, I'm looking at you guys, Jack Flood's here, he's our spatial data logic, the technology that we're implementing throughout the city. We're all different divisions, we can get into that in a little while. I'm glad Jack is here, sorry.
So I had a question just from a different angle, I think, just as a resident. My husband and I renovated a kitchen in a condo a couple years ago, and we're in a different place now, but we're looking to potentially do a renovation project on a house if we end up buying it. So the two experiences sort of lead me to ask this question. Is there sort of, how can a resident best navigate this whole process? And the main reason why I ask that is that the contractors that I've spoken with, it seems like the building department of Jersey City is like this huge black box labyrinth of a place that it's sort of like you need to know the right people and it's kind of unclear. And my initial contractor who did our kitchen, he almost indicated, are you sure you want me to get the permits? Kind of like that type of, which to me I would never do because I have two young kids, I want it to be up to code. So how does a resident best sort of navigate the system and advocate for your own self when you're working with the contractor who obviously has, financial interest and has know-how that a consumer might not? What can we do to sort of best arm ourselves with the knowledge to sort of move forward through a project?
Well, the best thing is that there are aspects of the job that do not require limits. Okay, there are other aspects of the job that do require limits, but it's under the guise of under the head of minor work. When you start doing structural items and things as such like that, then you need to probably hire the services of the design professional and stuff to basically take those steps there. As to navigating it, the only thing I can say is the Jersey Department of Community Affairs website. They'll go through the UCC portion of publications, right? Identifies work that is known as ordinary repairs and minor work. So, for example, in a one-family house, you want to change your toilet, you can change your toilet. It doesn't require a permit. You want to replace kitchen cabinets, it does not require a permit. You want to replace windows, it doesn't require a permit. So those are the different things that will turn around and give you a better idea. So a contractor comes up to you and says, well, I got to do this or I got to do that. DCA's website will help you out, and if you have questions, you call the office. Okay? And if you want to email me, then I'll give you my email address in the videos.
Okay. So basically, because my question is really assuming that you do need the permits. So I guess the answer is to kind of get in touch with a state level agency or
No,
your employer.
no, this was happening, okay. Your contractor comes into the buildings department.
Okay.
We now have somebody who greets that person right there in the window, says, what are you here for? Okay, you're here for a permit, stay there. She starts processing whatever that is. Other people are working on different things. We just hired 2 additional technical assistants to do exactly that. We're installing 2 computers with spatial data logic as an information desk. So any resident can come in, look up where their permits are, where it's at, whether the fire did this or plumbing did that or not. So that's what they're doing. And every inspector is getting trained as we speak for the past 2 months now with iPads to go out and do inspections. And I'm glad, Frank, you're here, Jack, because Jack pretty much trained us on what this is going to do, how it's going to revolutionize the construction office. Would you like to just say a little bit about the implementation of
Sure. The building department contracted with us about a year ago, and we converted out of some of the other systems and started automating the building permit process.
Who are you? I'm sorry?
Yes,
What company are you?
I'm Jack Flood, I'm a company called Spatial Data Logic. The city hired us to help organize the building department a little better, implement better software procedures, get their inspectors mobile, and there's other steps that are coming out in the near future. You'll be able to go on the internet, log in, see your status of your permits, you'll be able to do permits online, be able to pay for permits at some point. That's not allowed by the state, and Ray can speak to that, about what you can and what you can't do. But essentially what we're looking to do is, instead of it being a 5-step process, getting it down to 1 or 2. That makes it a little bit easier for residents to do.
Will it also require inspectors to cite the code when they have concerns, questions about information or documents, as opposed to some notes that could apply to multiple sections of the building code?
Well, what the inspectors do is under Ray's control. But yes, there is.
If you want to talk about that, we'll talk about that.
And what's the timeline of completion?
Well,
Just generally.
I think the planning department is up and running. The housing code right now, you got a couple of issues with the forms, right? And you're pretty much up and running with that now. And you're interfacing with...
That's actually streamlining our code enforcement process where when violations are issued, we can that day issue the violations, email it to the owner for an emergency forthwith violation. So that's really been happening in my office for months now, and we're going to be field ready hopefully within the next 90 days. So the inspector, when he's in the apartment, and I'm talking housing code violations, can from that field send a photograph and the violation to the owner to his email right away.
It doesn't have to go back and forth to your office.
Exactly. It's really going to be a paperless system for my office, and it's something we're excited about. And, you know, through Jack sort of helping us track the ownership, which is really critical to my office's function. Knowing who the owner is, getting those violations to them quickly is really important. Today, I don't know if anybody heard, there was a tragedy up on Kennedy Boulevard. A counterweight fell off a fire escape and hit the superintendent in the head and killed him. So I got a phone call from the fire department. Mark, this is what happened. I looked on the computer to SDL. I had the ownership information. He was in Livingston, New Jersey. He was there within an hour. That could never have happened unless we were going towards this system of, computer system. It's a tragedy. That also tells you how important inspections are in Jersey City, between the Fire Prevention Bureau and my office, because many buildings in Jersey City have fire escapes. And all of these buildings were built years ago. New buildings don't have fire escapes. These are older buildings that have to be maintained. So code enforcement, fire prevention buildings department are all really important for the infrastructure of Jersey City to make sure these things are maintained. But that's just one quick example how streamlining the process is, and being able to email and get in touch with landlords right away. Cell phones is another great thing. I mean, years ago, we never were able to call an owner if there was no heat or hot water. especially when it's colder. Now we're in touch with sending blanket texts out when we have storms coming. So we're doing a lot with the technology we have.
How many enforcing officers do you have? This is a really kind of a technical question, but how many are out there actually on a daily basis? None. So, but seriously, what are the numbers? Because I feel like that's a big problem.
There's about 10 field inspectors in my office, including myself.
This is for fire?
No, this is for housing code enforcement.
For housing code?
Yeah, which is years ago called property conservation.
Okay.
So including my supervisors and myself, there's about 10 people in the field.
So somebody calls in a complaint and says...
Normally it's, within 24 hours. We respond in the morning. If I get a phone call that there's no hot water or there's a leaky ceiling, we can respond to that day. Many complaints come through the residents' response center now. I see Al D is here. We've done a lot of things with Al D's office, with the RRC, and hopefully Spatial Data Logic will be involved with her so she can see my system. She can see what violations we have on record so we're not duplicating things. Because many tenants call the same complaint and 3 days later, they're frustrated. And there's a court process, and there's a prosecutor, so it's a whole system that's in place. But to answer your question, there's about 10 inspectors from my office.
What about the rest of the office?
So that's maintenance, right?
That property maintenance, correct.
For construction, how many inspections are you talking about?
Total there's about nine inspectors plus the respective subcodes.
How many? 9?
9 inspectors.
Plus the subcodes.
Plus the subcode. The way the building department is broken down to is it's headed by the construction official. And there are 5 subcode officials or 5 subcode disciplines, which is elevator, building, plumbing, fire, and electric. And under those subcodes are basically the supervisors of the inspectors that are underneath them. So they'll be the ones that make decisions as to what the inspectors are out there doing and stuff like that.
You feel there's enough of them?
No,
Go around here and see.
there's more needed. And it's being worked on.
Okay, this gentleman here.
I don't know if you finished answering your question, because Jack said he's been working on the process for over a year, I think. And it seems that it's manifests itself most internally right now. But where are you with respect to that?
The inspector's going out.
Yeah.
And they're inspecting, and they're utilizing the iPads.
They're doing that now?
They're doing that now. Any problems they have, they report to Ray. If they have any glitches with uploads, any of the forms that are being uploaded. So Ray gets on it right away, calls Jack troubleshoots. There's a couple of glitches, and that's going to happen. It's a new technology, and we're working through the kinks because we have to interface with the Mod 4, right? And we're trying to do that so the tax assessor knows that, for instance, we want to know if there's going to be an extension being built on a house, right? The tax assessor should know about that also, not just our inspectors, because that house has to be reassessed. That person may have to pay a higher tax because he has that extension. Make sure that the permits are pulled in order. So, all of that plays a factor.
And where are you with getting the 5 steps down to 1?
I'm sorry?
Getting the 5-step process down to 1. How's that going?
2 steps up.
5 steps.
Well, you said
You're saying
that
instead of there being...
Getting more available.
The 2 things that we're looking forward to getting online is basically the web access, which people will have an understanding of the status of their inspections and their plans. The other one is basically the IVR system where people can call in, and it's non-human involvement as to basically calling and setting up an inspection. Like if you call refilling on a prescription, that's technically where we're going with this. So you'll be able to get the information, get your confirmation at the same time, and then it will be set up with the inspectors and have their inspections done before it is installed.
What's the timeline with that?
Until we get the tablet set up, I would probably say by the end of the year.
And we're also adding additions. We're adding 2 additional technical assistants. These are people that are going to be going to training to basically issue a simple permit. And we also have 3 inspectors coming on in July. So we're really trying to beef it up, and we're trying to do it in a way because it's hard to find certified people in these fields. We go through the state web pages, and we have our announcements. The mayor shoots it out on his web page and his Facebook, and he understands the shortage. Look, since 2008, we lost over 25 employees in the construction office. Through shenanigans or through retirements or whatever it was. We came in, we looked at what it was, okay, and we saw what we needed to do. And that's what we have to do, is transform the construction office. And Ray was working with what he had. And it was organized chaos for the most part. But now there's a resemblance of order, okay? We're going to have the Information Help Center up and running with two tables set up with computers so people can see where they're at, don't wait online. And we're going to have people, like you used to see the DMV 15 years ago, go to this line, oh, you got to be on that line. You go to this line, you got to sit on that line, you know? Not anymore. Okay, so we're trying to streamline that process. We're trying to do that in a way that is organized and it doesn't disrupt anything. In terms of expediting, nobody goes on top of anybody else. Permits come in, we process them, we got 20 days to get to them. We usually try to get them within 7 to 10 days, almost like an Uber request, right? 7 days, you got to submit that. And that's another thing. I got to put one person strictly on Uber request and all these different divisions because it becomes such a hot topic. People want to know more what's going on in the government. And as much as you try to be transparent, try to be putting things on the webpage like the abandoned buildings and the vacant lots and new ordinance for adopting, not adopting, but vacant lot ordinance so they register. We're trying to get an inventory of what the city has in this building. We have 1,300 abandoned.
At one time, in 2011, when the abandoned properties ordinance and the vacant registration ordinance was adopted, there was over 1,380 vacant buildings in our inventory. Now there's about 910. We had abandoned properties at 56. That number is 26. So there's a slow change happening. Also, the reason the number is where it's at is because the awareness, you mentioned awareness about green, the awareness of vacant buildings between the fire department, the police department, the buildings department, the health department, that is out there. In just a few short years, everybody's looking at vacant buildings and calling me, there's another vacant building, it's on our list, it's not on our list. So the awareness is out there. The council people are aware of it, they're aware of what the vacant vacant building registration ordinance has allowed us to do. Just to date, since 2012, we've registered 1,285 vacant buildings in Jersey City. That's $321,000 of monies that came in because it cost $250 to register that vacant building. Renewals at $389. That's $194,000 in renewal fees. We're looking to do the same thing with vacant lots. There are many vacant lots throughout the city. Drive down any block, any neighborhood, you'll see vacant lots unkept, fences are down, weeds, broken sidewalks. Nobody's maintaining those lots. It's a tough challenge for the city. We only have so much we can put into our incinerator authority to keep up with this. They've just approved a vacant lot registration ordinance, same as the vacant building registration ordinance. You have to register your vacant lot. So I know who owns that vacant lot. It's not just an LLC anymore. It's a person's name with their phone number and their email. And they have to sign a property maintenance agreement. I will maintain my lot. I will keep the grass clean. I will shovel it in the winter when it snows. This winter, nobody shoveled the sidewalks in front of vacant lots. There was no doorbell to ring to say shovel your lot. So it's a challenge. I think the vacant lot registration ordinance is a good move. I applaud the city council for voting on it, adopting it, and in 30 days I start enforcing it. So I'm going to need personnel. Also, and I'm working with Director Cruz on how we're going to implement this new ordinance. And it's really, I think, important for Jersey City to see a change from these weeds and broken fences and broken sidewalks. And the goal here is if you don't know what you're doing with that vacant lot, sell it to a developer, sell it to a builder. What are you holding on for? Because next year, when you renew your vacant lot registration, it's a $500 renewal fee. It's sort of an incentive for you to do something with that. So, and if it's a small lot, there's plans on letting, through the council office, adopt a lot, make it a community garden, do something positive. Just don't leave it overrun and unkept.
Okay, you had your hand up? Did you have your hand up?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Here.
But just really quickly, the difference between vacant buildings and abandoned buildings, right? The vacant buildings, these out-of-town landlords are still paying taxes. The abandoned buildings, they pretty much...
Well, abandoned buildings are, even sometimes banks have not foreclosed on them yet for whatever their reasons are. So an abandoned property is something where a bank hasn't stepped up and signed up as a registered creditor. And we've considered them abandoned because the city is considering using the aqua ordinance, which would call it into spotlight, lighting, or eminent domain, and actually take a superior court action against them. And we're working on doing that to 12 buildings in Jersey City. It's a hard process, but it's something we're looking to do. We just did the title searches on those properties, and that's going to happen within the next 60 days. And I think it's just important that everybody sees the fire department decals up on these buildings. That's significant. That's making the building safe. That's for the firefighters and the police officers who don't go into a vacant building that they shouldn't go into. So the awareness, like I said, about vacant buildings is out there. The awareness of abandoned properties is out there. And the maintaining of these buildings are really important. I just spoke with Director Cruz and Jeremy Fowler about creating another ordinance, which is a HUD-style security of these vacant buildings. These buildings look horrible in Jersey City. They're not all going to be developed within the next year. What we have, let's do something with them. Let's get the wood painted. Let's HUD-style secure them so the cops aren't chasing the squatters out of them or the drug dealers out of them. Let's do more, and I think we're very close to having that ordinance brought before the council.
It's a little more costly, but again, the people don't go in and out of it like they do with the other just traditional plot development.
If you HUD-style a vacant building, secure it right, you'll never get in that building. And it eliminates that need to re-secure it over and over and over again. And having the creditor responsibility laws, I don't know if anybody knows about those laws, they're changing dramatically July 14th. I cannot hold the creditor responsible for a building right now unless it's in the creditor's name. Most of the buildings are not in the creditor's name. They're in the owner who moved away and thinks they were foreclosed on. It's pre-foreclosure. That's really important. Once the bank puts the name of the building in their name, the deed's recorded in the bank's name, Bank of America, then they normally sell it within 30 days. Those deeds are all in the original owner's name. The banks have registered because of pre-foreclosure and creditor responsibility laws. July 14th, those laws changed, and it allows me, or the city, to go after the creditor and to actually prosecute them in municipal court. And I think that change in the law, you're going to see a lot of these banks get rid of their properties because they're not going to want to be held responsible. Because I'm itching to put a bank in court, and I will on July 15th. Because that's my goal, to make the banks be more responsible and spend money out of their deep pockets to maintain their property, and they're not doing it. And it's not just in Jersey City, it's throughout the country. This vacant registration law was adopted, I think, in Milwaukee. So this is going on throughout different municipalities in the whole country.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. Abandoned properties have so many issues to deal with. One other thing to throw out on that is that hydroponics programs are a great way to make an abandoned building be useful until it can be redeveloped or torn down or whatever. We heard from Rutgers, what was the guy's name?
Kevin Lyons.
Kevin Lyons is a good resource for that. Of course, that has to, if it's an abandoned building and we acquire it, obviously there's a lot of hoops to go through. But it's a possibility of making some money there. Just two other comments. First of all, I really appreciate you guys, making do with the limited resources you have, especially since 2008. And it sounds like you're turning a page and you're able to move forward and get more resources. So keep us informed, and whatever we can do to support that, throw more money and people your way. It's obviously something that's necessary in order for buildings to be safe, for buildings to be
just on a note, since the Director Cruz has been the director, many times the building department, the zoning department, my office, we're short-staffed. He juggles employees around.
Yeah.
He has all people in my office covering the permit disc and answering the phones at the buildings department, because that's where the need is right now. And when I get her back, then but he's very good at moving people into the zoning department for 14 days because somebody's out sick. And that happens all the time. People don't see that.
Right.
They just think we're short-staffed. Sure, we are short-staffed. But he's been taking staff, this is the summertime. I'm not doing heat inspections, hot water inspections like I am in December and January. But I'm using those inspectors on other things. And we're starting a training program hopefully soon with the buildings department. Some of my better inspectors will train alongside Ray's guys to maybe get a license and become a licensed building inspector, which is something more career-minded for them. So there's a lot of things that the public don't see, that the director and I speak with Ray about, and those things are being done behind closed doors, because that's how it's getting done.
So just to talk about energy efficiency and water efficiency, and we've already heard, everybody thinks this is a good thing. It has so many public benefits beyond just the residents in the building and the building itself, our urban heat effect and our stormwater management problems that we have here. So this stuff is vital to get done. What I'm hearing is that you guys are really only required to make sure things are up to the standard code, and I get that. And if we want building owners or developers to do more, we need to incentivize them. Once those incentives are in place and they're doing that, are you able to inspect up to green code standards? Are you knowledgeable about them, or do you need more training, or do you need more people?
We
Right, there's the existing codes, but the things that we want people to go beyond that. So
again, that's legislation.
Right, but let's assume that's in place.
Our planner
Yeah.
has been working with his project managers on green initiatives. Okay? And a lot of times, it's a little more expensive than your traditional to go about that. Whether if you're building something, whether you're building a building, you want to try and put green initiatives on it, it may be more costly. But this is something that our planners and our project managers will come up with, just as some of these developers want to upzone. We want, what does the city get out of it?
Right.
So we want to be able to at least insert some of those green initiatives.
Right. So I know your focus is the actual construction and inspection, so I'm asking, assuming somebody says, yes, I'm going to build this extra green energy efficient building, how do we know they're actually doing it? And are you able to inspect it up to that level of code?
We'll be prepared. We'll be prepared. We have plans to do that.
I think John, your hand was up there.
Yeah, I apologize for getting late. I'm not sure if this was covered, but what's being done to have the blank permits online, as well as possibly a Q&A for whatever the most common questions are on forms?
The blank inspection request or the technical aspects is found on the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs website. That will be located at www.state.nj.us/PCA/division/code. I'll leave it. But that's where.
How about putting within the city website?
Right.
Because most people aren't going to know to look on the state level. If they're going to be looking on the city website, well, if they're going to be looking on the internet.
I'll speak to the
city
website.
website.
The New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Okay, very simple. They give the listing of the Uniform Construction Code. You can look at copies of the current codes that are in effect. That's in PDF format. You can't print it out, but you'll be able to look up the codes and references. In addition to the Uniform Construction Code, it will tell you, define what's minor work, what's ordinary repairs, and that kind of thing, and what's required to submit their reviews.
I have a question. What about all the commercial properties that sells the mamas and papa stores? Some of them are really, I have to say, very filthy. I like to see them inspected. The buildings themselves are falling down, and I see this even on Grove Street. I've seen them in Journal Square on Westside Avenue. We have commercial properties that are selling food, and those buildings should be inspected.
I'd like to answer that. We do inspect those properties. We do it as a task force with the health departments and the fire prevention.
I've gone along with that.
Because many times in those stores, they're doing cooking without a suppression system. They have a little skillet or panini maker, and it's not protected, and that's really important. Many of them are not licensed. Okay, they have to have a current health license. Many of them are not licensed. Many of them are selling new cigarettes. These are all, and many of them, if you look, all their windows are covered, completely covered with different brochures and cigarette ads. And you have the law in Jersey City, the zoning ordinance requires you can only cover 25% of your window. And I'm a stickler about that in all the neighborhoods. But of course, manpower is elsewhere to get what I call a task force walking tour, to have the task force walk Journal Square. It takes time. It deputy mayor's been out with us on Martin Luther King 3 times within the last 60 days on our walking tour there. And part of it is for education, making sure their licenses are current, make sure they understand about the window ordinance, make sure they clean their windows and clean the sidewalks and all the other things we want them to do. But yes, Journal Square, Martin Luther King, Central Avenue, Grove Street, Newark Avenue. We just did Newark Avenue with the Special Improvement District. He walked with us. So yes.
Also, the SEPTED, we ran a seminar, SEPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And what we did is basically show the commercial, this is Monticello Avenue and MLK. This is what I was doing with the Special Improvement District. And what we did is basically show them about the covering of the windows. We told them basically how to do a drop box. We had a former chief of police who basically does this forensically, how to do this, came down and basically gave them a seminar. About 15 merchants showed up. And it's really hard to get merchants out because everybody's in mom and pops, they're working, so we had to do it in the evening. And they came out, they learned a great deal from that. There's crime prevention through environmental design, and a lot of other groups are starting to take note of that because we have the wrong trees, we have the wrong lighting on all our business districts. For some reason, that's the way it was back in the day. And they're all wrong, and we need to change that. So that's why we were doing these seminars, because it's more informational, but at the same time, it's what can we do to change it? And that's what we're starting to make those changes.
I want to get back on the actually people up here, a lot of people here that are here to talk about actually doing work on their buildings or small construction, 3-4 family units. I've heard a few stories. I haven't had this as an example for myself specifically, but where people that were building small buildings in downtown they get to the point where they're doing their final inspections. They have a subcode inspector come in. One of them gives them an inspection, and then gives them a list of items that need to be taken care of. Another inspector comes back on a follow-up and gives them a new list of items. And then, in one specific example, the guy told me that the first inspector told me he had to put a sprinkler in one location, and the second inspector told me he had to remove that sprinkler. So they're getting conflicting information from inspectors. They're causing them to do work. And I was wondering if there's a way, or if you guys are working on sort of standardizing.
Yes.
What we do on our inspections is we have this inspector report. Okay. It is my policy that when an inspector writes this up, okay, it's like basically cast in stone. Right? There is no changes or modifications made to this. If that occurs, they had better talk to their subcode to discuss what the issue is. There are changes that are made to this based upon an action. For example, I'll talk from an electrical standpoint. If we're telling somebody to bond the water meter, and we go there and do the inspection, and the water meter isn't bonded properly, okay? Well, guess what? That's the circumstance where that occurs. But under no circumstance does my inspectors change or add to this unless it goes to their subcode or even discussed with me before it's even discussed. So as far as hearing that story, okay, I'll give you my email address. If that has occurred on your job, I want to know firsthand.
So is that something that maybe should be a disclosure by the inspector when they're there? If we could just generally do that so that we inform the public in a way to say, this is our inform at any time in the future, this is your final, these are the items.
Usually,
just to inform
9 times out of 10,
like inform you, you're right.
As far as that goes, is that I could put it on the form and add it to the form, okay? Put it this way here to say if it's been modified or changed, that will be taken care of. I'll take care of that in turn. Put it this way here, when the inspector does come and it's received or signed by the person that's accepting it, they will see that they have a right to it. That's if they read it. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things I put out that people just don't read and then we have problems with it. So the better serve you, yes, I'll put that added to it. But my policy is do not add anything to the inspection. If they do, they have to go through this.
So it would be the main inspector and then the subcode inspector that might, the subcode inspector might be able to
No, it will be, if you're getting inspected by a building inspector or a combination building and fire inspector, they are the ones that will turn around and do that information, okay? And they will provide you with, again, discrepancies concerning the inspection, right? And the inspections are done basically to tell you, give you an idea, or the contractor to move the process forward so that this is done. In some cases, somebody wants to know what the code section is. Well, we'll come back and we'll give you the code section. But this is just a discrepancy list. It's a guide sheet to say, here's what's going on. You can test it. You can test anything that we do, all right? That's the role here. And once you do that, then we'll turn around and say, okay, fine, what do you want to talk about? And bring your documentation in, and we'll be more than glad to discuss it with you and illustrate it.
So if I was to talk to the person who told me the story, how would I respond to them in terms of this conflict, where one inspector told them one thing and another inspector? How would I manage it?
It sounds like one inspector told them one thing, and the inspector told them something.
Can I say something? I'm one of that people who one inspector says something and the other inspector says something totally different. One inspector passed the fire inspection, the other inspector can say that's wrong. You have to change. I want to introduce myself. I'm Jorge Mastro Pietro. I thank everybody because that's feel that you want to change this. I'm going to have a meeting with you on Monday at 10 because for this reason. I'm finishing. I hesitate to talk today here because I didn't get my CO yet. I went through 7 plumbing inspections and I didn't pass any inspection. I have here that report. Every report is different. So, and I don't have every report. I have only 3. The first report, I didn't get it. I called to the city to say, I want the report. They never gave me the report. I called one employee and they said, oh, we will send in 7 days. The 7-day passed. I called again. Another employee said, oh, that cannot be true. We are not going to send that to you. And they asked, why you want that? I said, for my records, I need that. So I'm trying to do, Pete says something that I'm trying to do everything right. I'm not that kind of developer who come here and trying to build micro units in a small lot. I'm building small buildings, nice buildings, green buildings, and instead to be reward for that, I'm punished for that. I finished my building in December. Beautiful building. July, or June, I don't have my final inspection. And every inspection is different. I'm trying to do the things right, but I feel that they don't allow me to do it. I'm not just a developer. I'm an architect with 25 years of experience. I look young, but I'm not so young. I was working everywhere. So this is the first time, and I also a resident here in Jersey City. I don't come here to make money and live. I'm here working because this is my city. This is the city that I chose to raise my family. Here is my son. He wants to be an architect. I said, okay, you should come to it. How to deal with these situations. So that lady said she wants to get it.
Once you already informed me of it, I definitely turned it
I said that I really appreciate, but I want to say that I sold every apartment in December. 6 months later, all the contracts are going to expire.
Yeah.
I paid already 30,000 interest for my loan and I'm still waiting. So I hopefully, and thank you for your response. I didn't know that I could contact you before. I contacted you after 7 plumbing inspections, but thank you for having the meeting on Monday.
Let's get one thing clear. We're not adversaries, okay? We're not adversaries. We're here basically to do a job to ensure that the contractors that people hire, okay, do the job in accordance with the code. We do the job of inspecting in accordance with the code, all right? At the end of the day, when the contractor leaves, and I know sometimes, and we leave, people are going to live in that building, or people are going to work in that building, all right? And that's the key, all right? So we need to make sure that it's safe. all right?
Totally agree.
All right? As far as being worried about a CO or not getting a CO, all right? I'm not going on a retribution. I don't even want to know people's names here or anything else like that. We're here to turn around and discuss problems. And we're going to do it, and if we can fix it, we'll fix it. Right? And that's what it comes down to.
Can I say something else? Because let's forget about this building. The situation that I find here, building in Jersey City, is that inspector comes to me. I have many examples. One is, one inspector comes to me and said, oh, you have to do this work with a resident channel inside for STC, for acoustical insulation. I said, that's weird. I have 25 years of experience, I never heard that. So I have to go to the code to check that. I went back to the inspector with the code and he said, oh good, you did your homework. I don't have time to do my homework. This is part of the inspector. They cannot give me one thing to do today and tomorrow they change, or I have to check. Sometimes it's easy to check. I knew that. But sometimes when the inspector comes and says, oh, you have to change that pipe for something smaller or bigger, whatever. I don't know where to check that. So it's easier.
The issue becomes when an inspector comes and tells you to do something, you want the code section. You want the code section.
Yes.
Okay? If they can't furnish you the code section, then you turn around and say, I need to speak to your supervisor. Okay? I need to speak to your supervisor. Okay? If it doesn't get through with the supervisor and the inspector sitting down together, okay, and discussing the issue, all right, it gets to me.
But you're going to be really busy.
It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard.
I just fear that there seems to be, this is not just Jorge's issue, it seems to be an ongoing.
Well, no, but this is what's occurring, and I will have a big meeting.
Hold on. First, let me apologize on behalf of the buildings department for the frustration that we had to go through, okay? But this doesn't go on all the time, not anymore. Not anymore, okay? You can say whatever you want, okay? But there's a change in that construction office to the point where we're moving projects forward. We're getting a lot less of what you're talking about and a lot more progress ahead. So those are the things that we got to try and stop from happening, and we will do that. That's why we hired the additional personnel that the mayor gave us. That's why the mayor gave us another 3 inspectors for July. And this is why we're training these people with the new technology that we have, so we wouldn't have to go through what you just experienced. And I appreciate you coming out here today, because that is pretty much reflective of a lot of the frustrations that people have basically gone through the buildings department before. We're trying to change that now. I think we're making some headway doing that.
Okay, this young lady in the meantime.
I just want to say, I'm Diana Sutherland, I'm with Keller Williams Realty. I've probably represented more large and small builders in this city for the past 9 years than any other agent. I've seen this many times with the building department. It did get better for a little while. I represented Jorge's building, sold all the units back in December. It is truly the worst situation I have ever seen in all the years I've been in business in this city. And I've represented KHOV at 77 Hudson, I've represented Gulls Cove, Trump, many small developers. And what I can tell you is what's very frustrating and upsetting to me is there are so many people that I see every day that want to move into this city. There's no inventory to sell them. And part of what's happening is the small developers are getting hurt so badly here that they don't want to build here anymore. If it's either the taxes, the horrendous tax abatements they're getting that are making them not even be able to sell their properties, or it's, you know, it's like, no, you have to keep this retaining wall so we can call it gut renovation rather than new construction, so there's more taxes coming in from it, which has driven so many of them out of here. And so these dilapidated, horrible places that should be condemned are sitting and sitting and sitting. And personally, I think this city is poised right now, and from what I'm seeing, I've never sold to so many people from New York, from Brooklyn, from Hoboken. We are at a point that we can turn this city around, and it is going to absolutely stop if this kind of thing keeps happening. This is the worst situation I've ever seen. We have every unit owner in this building could walk away in a couple of weeks.
The issue here is, and I was aware of this, okay? There's the other thing that I'm aware of, an inspection is scheduled, okay? And then it gets canceled, okay? It's another thing where I basically said, no, you go out a day for a day's inspections, you finish inspections. There's no reason why you should cancel an inspection. So if I don't know about this, okay, or nobody's coming back and telling me, how can I fix it?
But do you know what's happening? What's happening is, and I can tell you this, and I know it's true for Jorge, and I know it's been true for other builders, they're afraid to come forward and say it because they feel like it's almost a personal vendetta, and it's going to create a worse situation. It's a worse situation.
That was the culture before. It's
No, but
the
it's
culture now.
But that isn't what's
You know how many
happening here.
people I talked to come today and they didn't want to come because they are about to finish? There was a neighbor, 4 years and a half, to get a construction permit, 2-family home. They were asking to put a sprinkler system in the 2-family homes. They have to go to Trenton to get that.
He said 4.5 years.
4 years and a half.
And there's comments on construction.
And they said control, this gentleman in his hand.
I was just going to make a suggestion that we, and this is kind of in-house, since you guys are making all these changes, and I've been seeing a lot of changes. Would it be just possible when guys are doing initial plan review as well as their inspections in the field, if there's an in-house policy, because your guys are always up to date on all the changes, even the design professionals have to catch up because we get mail stuff out at the same time you do, but we sometimes don't read through all of them as quick as you do, depending upon what we're working on. Couldn't there just be an in-house policy that says, listen, when you're doing plan review, you need to cite the section of the code that you have a concern about. So there's some specificity, because that'll expedite moving plans through and getting the design professionals involved and moving it away from you having to police contractors who may not be as well versed in the building codes, because it's all about life safety. So, and then the second thing would be, obviously, this is happening with the updating and the inspections and it being out in the field, is when there's an issue and someone fails for something or someone needs to have something done, obviously they have to fill out that form, but they should also cite the section because many times it'll come back to the design professional, and what ends up happening is it comes back to the design professional. Not all offices are the same. Many offices don't require supervision where the design professional isn't involved, so they're getting it through jumbled language to a contractor, and they're never sure. But if the section of the code that is being violated or concerned is cited, then it goes right to the design professional. We have to put our names on the documents at the end of the day because we're working in conjunction with you guys. And then there's less policing to do. So if it's internal, if there's a simple internal rule, when drawings come through, questions and concerns about the drawings, cite the section of the code, right? I mean, I've seen Pete out on job sites and we've been able to sort through things, but we will always update a drawing.
Did I give you a hard time?
No, never did, because everybody's goal is life safety, and at the end of the day, we all walk away, but someone's going to live in it for 100 years, hopefully, or more. But if there's an internal policy, you say, listen, guys, you got to start citing these sections, because then it goes right to the design professional. You won't have to police your contractors as much, because those are the sign and seal drawings, those are people whose, let's say, livelihoods are on the line along with yours. If it's an internal policy, we expedite things, we save time, and we also take the pressure off some of the subcode officials having to deal with back and forth with the contractor, which you don't have time for in your office because I see this happening there too. Your job is not to teach people about the code, which I see happening many times. That's not your job. Your job is to enforce the code. So if we create an internal policy saying, look, this is the section of the code that design professionals will follow, and the same thing will happen on inspections. And then it doesn't have to, hopefully I'm trying to save you time here, so.
I understand. And
Never a problem.
but there are, basically was trying to get in place checklists, okay? Because the state has the checklist for their plan review submissions and stuff like that. So that's been trying to get pushed into play, but there's other things too that have to get put into play. But what troubles me is that the general population here is saying they're having problems with my inspectors because they're citing things, that are coming back and they're adding more stuff. I need to know this, okay? I need to know this. I need to tighten up my policy with them and stuff like that. Because if it becomes a problem that this is occurring, well, then maybe I need to go to the people that license number, okay? And have them talk to them. If this is, and if it's causing impact on certain individuals. So, I don't need this to happen. And I don't need inspectors coming back and forth to a site 6 or 7 times. They need to get the job done. That's the primary thing. And they need to get it done so that everybody is on the same page, we're looking at the same things together, and we'll get it done. But if this is the case, I'm going to give you my email address. You send me your email, state your complaints about it. If you don't feel comfortable giving it to me, give it to RRC. Okay? Go phone it into RRC and register the complaints with them. And then it can be done anonymously. Okay? That's the thing that's being done.
I think Joyce is taking this up too. You want to send her a mail too?
So, I mean, could there be some kind of computer checklist that goes to you that says if an inspector has gone back to a building 6 times and checks a red flag, that goes directly to you that says red flag on property 93 Bright Street, issues, you need to talk to the inspector and say what the hell's going on. I mean, can there be some sort of program like that, or some sort of connection with, I know I'm asking a lot here, but that also might be...
Give them something to think about.
But I mean, that also might be something, because we were talking, I was talking with...
I do this for about 125,000 a state.
Okay.
It's not unusual to go back 9 times in a situation that they're just doing it wrong. There are certain cases where it is a safety, and the code enforcement official that's out there is trying to make sure that they do it right. And sometimes residents are cutting corners. I mean, that is just the reality. I'm not saying that that's in every case, but I'm saying, yes, that if you're going back 6 or 7 times, I'm sure Greg, I'm sure subcode officials, I'm sure the other ones that are going to be out doing those inspections are using my software to say, no, I've got to double check this place, because I know they're probably in trouble.
So you're right, it could be an inspector problem, or it could be a contractor problem. You have to want to get to the bottom of it, and maybe you want to impose a fine if a contractor is abusing the inspecting office.
Or vice versa.
Excuse me.
I'm the field inspector.
He's the field inspector.
Okay? And the address was mentioned, and I'm not going to go into details about that. But one of the problems, and the design professional can tell you, we go out there and people decide they're going to change what the architect designed. There we have a problem. We're not allowed to design a building. We're not allowed to deviate from the plans. They change something and don't recognize that by not going back to the design professional, they've created a ripple effect in a space. Everything from I went to a building and they decided to change, the contractor decided to change out the layout in the mechanical room. That change in the layout in the mechanical room affected access to the equipment in order to service it, which is a requirement under the code to be able to access it. It also impacted the ability to put combustion air in that space. Without that ability to put combustion air in there, you can create a carbon monoxide hazard. It is not as simple as the inspector going and just giving them a hard time. Those changes create a ripple effect around that whole space. You say you should have went to your design professional, because they would have advised them, don't do it this way. But the contractor decides he's going to take the easy route. It's easier for him to put it here, not recognizing the design professional placed it for a reason. And I recently had one downtown. They changed the whole utility room around. What happened? No access to the equipment, no combustion air to that equipment. So we end up with a potential to kill people. And I failed that property, and it was that address the lady mentioned. Okay? Yet I resolved the problem for the gentleman. I didn't make him go back to the design professional. We solved it simply by putting a big grill in the wall so he can access it and provide the sufficient combustion air. All right, but people weren't happy. Oh, you're holding up my CO. I'd rather hold up your CO than have somebody die from carbon monoxide. Okay, those are the little things that they're not aware of. So if you have an architect, please stop changing his plans. Call him up, call her up, talk to them about what you want to do. It's more important than you realize. And I can tell you, design professionals I've had to call up, or they've called me up and said, what's going on? And they'll go out there and say, what did you do? You can't. It seems minor to many people. You can change your kitchen layout, we don't worry about that. Sprinklers, an example about a guy saying, oh, one guy told me to put it in, another guy told me to take it out. We always get sprinkler plans that give a layout, tell you where they go. So what ends up happening, somebody decides they're going to put a closet somewhere where there wasn't one, a storage area where there wasn't one. Suddenly it changed the sprinkler layout. I don't want to open the paper. I don't want to go anywhere and see that somebody died in the building. I've got to live with that too.
And sprinklers are an engineered system. Sprinklers are an engineered system. The guys go out there and conduct their inspections. They do a rough piping inspection, okay? And the rough piping inspections are saying, this is how we're going to run this particular pipe, and this is, it's going to have so many bends, or it's going to have some go in this direction, go in that direction. So what happens is, the first thing when the inspector goes out, the drawings don't match up what's up on the ceiling. So now we've wasted an inspection. Instead of turning around and saying, well, maybe we'll get away with it because they approved to an above ceiling inspection, and we'll turn around and we'll see if we can bluff this through. The inspector turns around and says, give me a set of as-built drawings, which takes time. So when the inspector goes there and conducts that rough piping inspection, that's what he's basing upon representation on the drawing. This is one of the things that is followed by the line. So I'm thinking a roadmap. Right? When that inspector goes back there and conducts a final inspection of it, he's going up there and looking at the sprinkler installation. If things got changed, or things that weren't shown, like light fixtures or obstructions or grills and stuff like that, he's going to say something about it. Right? Now, they may come back that he says, I have a problem with this or something like that, or maybe it's too much of an interpretation of the code, and then he'll go back to his subcode and say, listen, I got this problem here, and that's going to be where that particular case happens. Sprinklers are a design system, and they're following like a roadmap. That's the only thing I have to say. So when a guy's calling for a rough piping inspection, if it's not what's up on the ceiling, you ain't getting the inspection.
What's a subcode? I'm sorry.
A subcode is basically the branch that he's supervising his building, plumbing, fire, electrical.
I'll give you another example. As simple as someone decides they're going to move the grills on their heating and cooling system. And they decide to put them around the smoke detectors. Now the architect, the designer comes in, has a plan laid out a certain way. And you go there, they reconfigured it. Now we have air washing past that detector. That's going to affect that detector's ability to do its function. So please, if you could convey to people, if you have a plan, follow it. I've gone into jobs, I'd love to pass it, but you put a return over here and a supply over here, and you're going to prevent the smoke from getting to, or the carbon monoxide from properly getting to that device. It'll wash past it. The air will affect it. These little things they do impact. And we try to convey to people, please don't change it. And Ray says about the plan, the law says we must follow those plans. We're not even supposed to conduct an inspection if you don't have the plan on site. And it creates a slowdown. And we do have a problem that there are some developers in the city that like to book us 5 days a week. They load up our system, and suddenly we're bogged down, so we can't give it this quick inspection to other people.
We're working on that.
And we do try to resolve it.
No, what I want to say is, I really appreciate your comment, because what I think that I would like to do is to work together.
I'm sorry.
No, I would like to work together. So if an inspector go and see something wrong that maybe I miss, I really appreciate that you said, you know, you need to put a bigger grid here. I really appreciate that. That's what I'm looking for, to work together, to go to the site and say, I don't want you go to the site and say, oh, everything's okay, pass the inspection. I want you to tell me, okay, this is wrong, I will fix it. And then, what I'm pointing out is something different. I don't want people, I know you went, maybe you don't remember me, but you went many times to make this right, and I always appreciate your comments.
Where was this?
96 Bright, but never mind, because I'm not always on the inspection.
But we solved both problems. You weren't there.
Yeah, we solved the problem, so I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. The problem is that when we go back and forth with different situations and always something new, and different inspectors say different things, that's the problem. So I really appreciate it.
Don't get me wrong, I love people that challenge me on the code, okay? I really do, because I'm not, Mr. Perfect. You turn around, you see something to me, and you argue a point to me, I'll turn around and say, okay, it makes sense, or it doesn't make sense. I mean, we go into battles.
Okay, good to
We'll go into battles. So, I mean, somebody that turns around and says, oh, what'd you do that for? Well, the inspector told me to do it. And I like to say, what are you doing that for? All right? Okay. That's the point.
Yes.
That's the point, okay? If you believe, honestly, that there's an issue or a discussion about something, bring it up and discuss it, okay? And then challenge, okay? It's not a case, the code is a living document, okay? If it was written in stone, it would be written in stone. That's why it's changed every 3 years, okay? That's the way it's seen. And if there's some way to look at it, or some way to look at it and turn around and say, yeah, it falls within that parameters, okay? It can turn around and be done. We're going to turn around and say, yeah, back us up with the ability to make that decision. But still, we turn around and say, yeah, give us the challenge to it. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what you feel is wrong.
That's awesome. That's not the reality that we've experienced in the field. And if because there's a fear that keep your mouth shut. Whatever they say, do it.
That's what I'm hearing.
Because if you don't do it, you're going to cause problems for yourself. So what you just said is awesome, but that's not the reality.
It's funny because you have to know Ray Meyer's personality in the office.
Sounds fantastic.
He sees you and he knows you. You've seen you a dozen times. What are you here for? What do you got? Not how you doing, John? What do you got? Right? But this is how he comes up. People know him already. They know him. Hey, Ray, how you doing? And they sit down. They know where to go. But he runs the show down there, and he runs it tight. What you just spoke about, it's just not the small developers, it's the big guys doing this also, changing plans, almost changing the game in midstream, and then we have to go back. So it's not them holding back the process of you getting your TCO or CO. It's the fact that there are changes that don't permit them within the code to give you that. It's not that they want to hold it back.
Please don't misunderstand. I'm not painting with broad strokes, because I've had excellent experiences with inspectors as well. So I'm not painting with broad strokes.
And I think it's interesting that you have an appointment with him on Monday.
Right.
I wish you would have contacted him 90 days ago, because I don't understand why people can't just go to the city website, Ray Meyer's email, Raymond@jcaj.me email. He responds to every email. I respond to every email. Director Cruz responds to every email.
If you've been hurt monetarily and you're in a position like this, there is a fear factor. There is another building he wants to do. If there is something I'm just saying if, there's something at work here that's
and I understand
beyond.
that fear.
If it's a personal
It's a big city.
thing
There's so much construction going on. Ray Meyer, he's not going to concentrate on his next project.
No, I'm not saying Ray Meyer.
I'm
saying if there is an
respect.
issue with a particular inspector and he knows he has another project to do. You know what Jorge kept saying to me every time I said to him, you've got to go to the city.
Well,
You've got to go
to Ray and
retire.
say, I never want to see this inspector at my site again. Ray, make those arrangements.
But the fact is, then you're afraid. What happens is, honestly, you're afraid you're going to make it worse. And honestly,
Well, maybe this meeting's going to change that for you.
Hopefully
Maybe that change
Hopefully
is going to
that
change.
will.
Another thing.
I didn't want to say that. I went to the city. I talked with the plumbing official. After that, the inspector comes yesterday and said, where is that guy who went to the city and talked crappy things about me?
Well, you should
he gave me a very hard time yesterday.
Because that's what Ray wants to hear.
I think
Because they're the things that Ray wants to hear.
I appreciate the fact that you sound like you're genuinely open to criticism, but I think it's unrealistic if you don't accept that there's a power dynamic in place simply because you hold the permits. And that's you personally with your department. And there is a culture in the city that a belief that this is a difficult process, that this is a fearful process. So I think one of the things that you might want to try to look for is how can you change that perception if you really want to make it an open process.
I think the suggestions here that we start putting code points in your responses was at least an excellent progressive suggestion because it professionalizes the interaction in a way that allows people to know that it's a fair and straightforward interaction. And I think that's kind of the type of thing that we're dealing with. Saying, I'm open to arguments, that's great, but there's still a power dynamic that's going to force a lot of people never to take up that offer. There's simply not what
right? If I hear as a director,
human nature refuses it.
if I hear as a director that there was an inspector that went because you called, say, Althea at the Mayor's Residence Response Center, or you called Mark, or somebody else, and they went, why the hell did you call Mark? Why did you call Althea? Who are you to do this and this? I want to know who that person is because he or she will be suspended on the spot. We don't tolerate any of that. We're changing the culture in the buildings department. Ray's getting enough personnel right now. Instead of playing catch-up, we're going to be moving forward, okay? We have a storage capacity issue that we're trying to deal with as well. There's a lot of moving parts within all of these divisions. But if I find out that an inspector can walk anything like that or retaliated on any homeowner, he or she will be fired on the spot or suspended. Probably suspended because they're union commission. So we'll probably suspend them. But again, I have somebody in my office that does troubleshoot anything that comes up to the director's office. George Doan is from my office. I'll give you that number if you'd like at the end of this meeting. He's the person that if you get complaints like you had horrible experience, and I apologize for that earlier, okay? But again, if you have experience like that, or you know somebody that wants to move into the city like yourself, you know these, we just did a real estate bus tour. About 40 brokers showed up to do this, and it was fantastic. Those are the kinds of things we want to do to bring the economic engine into areas that traditionally have been neglected for many years. So I mean, we're going to work with you on that, but I have a zero tolerance on that stuff. The mayor has charged me to change the culture, to change the department, okay? Ray's getting the proper personnel July 1st to make that happen. So I think that give us a couple of months, you'll see the changes. I think, you know, not for anything, it's just one letter. But the mayor did receive a positive letter about the construction code office. And he emailed me, the letter, because I think it was the first one in maybe 40 years. So, I think we may have turned the page on that one, possibly, okay? So, we're looking at
I think it's been very hard for me. I used to be aide to Councilman Bullock when he was councilman, and it was very hard reconciling this feeling of fear of retribution with who Ray Meyer was, because every time we went to him, he would be open to meetings, and he'd go, okay, here it is in one shot. This is everything you need to do to complete it. But no matter what, there is that perception there, and I'm wondering if things like the RRC could write a document of what to expect, what triggers, like what kind of treatment you can receive when when the inspectors come to your door. They should be wearing a badge. They should always be professional. This is what they should go down the list of things for. And at least that's taking away the unknown. Should I have received this? Should I have received that? Was this right? So now then it takes out a whole set of things that undermine the process.
So, Althea, you want to head that? RRC, and this way here she can speak to the building. She really just like a little cheat sheet. That's all I was asking about. That would be helpful. That's all, and because
someone knocks on your door, please answer from an inspector. You don't know by the inspector from the Office of Construction Code or the inspector from the fire department. You don't quite know who they are. So if we start to have across the board a code of conduct for our inspectors, that will protect the inspectors as well as the residents and business owners.
Okay, thank you, Althea. Okay, gentlemen back here.
To build on those comments, I mean, something that allows for some additional transparency would be basic sort of, we will get a response back to you within 10 days, 15 days. Over the last year, our average has been 7.5. We've had 8 exceptions. Those things take time to build, but aligning that with it will make it even more transparent and also easier for you to see where things seem to be just a few standard deviations away from the norm. something like that.
When I issue you a receipt, and you file a job in my office, you receive a receipt, okay? On that receipt, it says what your control number is, you filed on blank date, okay? According to state regulation, you have 20 business, we have 20 business days to review your comments. Your contact information is as follows, and this shall be unified to serve notice of the review process. Site address, we have your email address, we have your mailing address, we have your phone number, we have your fax number, okay? Basically, during that time frame, okay, questions concerning the filing of your application, the status should be directed by email only and addressed to the following individuals, and I go through that. After a complete review by applicable subcodes, you may obtain partial releases. Right? So there is the disclosure. I'm giving you everything I possibly can in the course of your review. All right? After a complete review, all denials, well, that's been changed with the spatial data because during the course of the review, if we have your appropriate email address and it's given to us properly, we email your denial straight to you as the reviews are conducted. All right? The schedule of appointments is made by a reviewer, and any other representation is false. So if a guy turns around and says, oh, you want to check, I got a denial that the tech card doesn't match the plans. Contractors, the tech card doesn't match the plans. All right? Well, I brought them to change the tech card into the office. Well, that doesn't work. Sit down with the reviewer because the reviewer will turn around, and at that moment, if everything matches up, sign it. If that's the only rejection that you have, you move over to the counter, you get your price, they'll let you know how much you pay, you walk out of the office and you got your checks with the permits. All right?
Hi, Ben Forty, Beach Enterprises. I've filled out an email address for the last 5 years, and nobody has ever emailed.
The email is just recently. Oh, the email is just recently, okay? If you don't agree without the agency's review, you may return, obtain written opinions from IBC or DCA, all right? Code assistance unit down at DCA, if you're phoning for the code assistance unit down here, you can contact, all right? And the final step is with the Construction Board of Appeals, all right? And you can file an appeal with that, okay? So, failure to abide by this will delay your permits. Very simple. But if you work within these confines, you'll get a permit. And that's what it comes down to.
I guess my question is, do you know how many days it takes on average? Do you know what percent get exemptions, what percent go up to 300 days? Do you know which inspectors get it done in 5 days of response? Do you know how many fill out before?
Well, I suspect I mean, those metrics can be brought apart with the new SDL data logic. It's just a matter of basically cross-checking what that is. Again, this is new technology that we're implementing, and this is a good point that you bring up, and it's something that we may want to do just to gauge on the barometer of what's deficient, what's moving forward.
One of the points to make it transparency, I'm sure there's a process to be able to see what the results are, be able to have it transparent. I think it's beneficial for everyone.
Okay, I just have a question about the technology. If I were a homeowner and I started the process, can I go online with my homeowner number, my job number, whatever you call it, whatever you're going to issue me, and see every document that's there? So if you're expecting to come out and have documents, that way if I issue whatever, I email you or whoever needs to look at it, and everything is right out there.
Is that going to be?
I don't get that. Is it like everything consolidated to one customer, or is it still going to be a lot of paper?
It's per property. Everything is going to be by block and lot. So you'll be able to search by your owner's name, by block and lot, or by address.
So everything that's going on, say at a particular site, if you're going on, everything that's been
everything in a status level will be available. Not every document, not every scan, not everything. But at least you'll be able to see when the portal gets launched. Here's my property, here's all the permits, here's all the inspections, and the level of where they're at.
But the dates, not the
The
documents.
dates and the times.
But not the documents. So you can go on and say, the inspector came out last Tuesday, and if you were going to review something, you could look at it online for that customer, but you couldn't actually see what the documents were. You'd have to go back to the file and get them pulled, right? Like you couldn't read, if I filled out that application, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. All right.
So no,
There's another project going on in the city, the dashboard project, that is also something that is expanding that. So.
They should be able to do the dashboard, should be able to get a lot of information.
So that's the future.
That's right.
No, now the mayor gets
That's
that.
right. When that comes up, he's supposed to be.
Mayor gets the dashboard, he basically gets
Right.
how many permits were issued, how much revenue was generated from that. So he gets a bird's eye view of what's going on throughout the city and all my divisions.
No, what I'm saying is, if I come in and I fill out that number, okay, my application, does that application go under my lot parcel number? And when I get an inspector, you come out, you inspect something, you say, you put a closet here, you do it. You know, you didn't want to spend an extra couple $100 to your designer, now it costs you like thousands more because you delayed your project. Okay, something like that. This is why I'm not approving your inspection today. Would the actual document be on my lot and number so that all of my documents are in one place regarding the inspections?
If I may.
Go ahead.
You talk about you came out and you had a plan and you deviated from the plan?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good example
If you
because in essence what
deviated
you're
from the
saying
plan,
is you deviated from the plan.
it depends upon what the deviation is.
Okay.
And an inspector has discretion on those matters.
Okay.
So you move a closet here or there. If it does not impact egress, safety, certain things, most inspectors just make a little note and they don't care about that. You're allowed certain little bits of changes, and we have a certain amount of discretion. The bigger problem is those changes that start to impact safety. And one thing, like I said, becomes a ripple effect. All the way down to the energy systems in the buildings and so many other things. So most of my experience is most people do little things, you don't even notice it. Because I'm not going to take your plans and measure if that closet's 6 inches away or a foot away. You can move it on the other side of the room. If it didn't affect it structurally or didn't affect the safety, I don't really care. It's not a factor, and Ray would say it's not a factor. His policy is if it doesn't affect safety, you don't worry about it. That's been his policy. And it's all about life safety. If it doesn't affect, I like to say to people, my job is if they don't burn down, they don't fall down, I did my job.
Mr. Jones.
And that's our goal. Let me underscore that really quickly because, the buildings construction office, they do this every day. They're the reason why we don't have fires every week and every week there's a building collapsing because of the work that they do. So I don't think they get enough credit for that because obviously, you hear what happened before and that's what we're trying to change. But I want to underscore that because they do a lot of work. They're multitasking. We got guys that are holding multiple licenses doing that. We're not even paying them anymore. But they're doing this for us.
We can talk about that.
Well, yeah. We really appreciate that because we're asking them to do more with less. And we're trying to move personnel around so he won't be efficient. So we're more proactive instead of reactive. And that's why we're putting the computers up and the information. You can read that as a read-only document, right? Is that right, Jack? Right? So, and if there's attachments that need to be put that, just call the office, hopefully, we'll be able to at least administrate that.
You as an owner, okay, hire a contractor, okay? The contractor is representing to you that he is technically expert in performing the job at hand, okay? If you turn around and say to him, did you get a permit, okay? The first words you should say to him, no, the building department's holding me up. Okay, what's the control number? I'm going to email you. If you don't have a control number, then we'll go to red file. Okay? Now, I had an inspection. What was the result of that inspection? Okay? Let me see the sticker, the approval sticker. Or let me see the rejection sticker. Well, what did I fail for? Well, he says, well, he's always doing this. He gives me a hard time every time he comes here. Well, let me see the sheet, what he failed me for. Okay? That's how we work together. All right? That's how we work.
Mr. Jones, your last question was everybody has to go. But what I will ask you to do is make sure you please sign in on that list going around. And what I will do in probably in September, I will form another meeting to see our progress. I think that's fair. All right? So that's why it's important to sign and I'll send everybody an email and this way here we can build relationships. This way we don't look like we're the bad guys. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I'd like to change the focus just a second. To comment on the contractors on the building department. I've been a contractor here in Jersey City for over 25 years. Now I would like to, on a positive note, I'd like to to compliment you guys on the changes I've seen as far as the time that it takes for the permit to go through the process. Now, I've definitely seen an improvement. But on the other hand, the problem that we still have is the wait time that it takes to file for a permit. I've sat in the office 2 to 3 hours just to file a permit. Now, I'm thinking that maybe you can sort of streamline the clerks there to maybe if we could get maybe two clerks to do the electrical, 2 to do the plumbing, 2 to do the building. Because I noticed that it seems like you get more building people coming in than you do electrical. And electrical usually moves pretty quickly once they finally get the paperwork. But I mean, you know,
that's because I don't like electrical contractors. I have to take care of the competition.
Well, I mean, we're both electrical contractors. But, you know, this is just, that's such a time-consuming affair.
The issue that I have is my waiting room, okay? And I've seen other waiting rooms, I think that I can talk about Hoboken too, basically sitting 6 in the row there, right in the door, all right? But that too is being addressed, all right? With the additional clerical staff, the clerical staff that's there, all right? And when it comes down to it, when the system is being taxed and I have more than amount of people, what I do then is tell them, go check the documents, we'll assign you a temporary control number to get you in the door and out of the door. Now, I was also implementing at the time the issuance of minor work permits at the time, all right? So that if you're doing a single light fixture, as maybe a 100-amp service, that type of thing, or doing an oil tank, or some siding on a one-family house, those type of things, all right? Was trying to get the minor work permits out the door at that time. But if I'm too busy there, I need to move the people out because even that takes time. And that's the goal right now. So with the additional people that I have there, once they start getting broken in, and once they can handle the computer, then we will have more time to get that addressed. But for the time being, yes, if there's another standard order that I have in the office, if there's more than 3 people in the waiting room, it's an all hands effort to get them in there and get them out of the office. So that's what I've been trying to work on. With more staff now, it could probably a lot more to be taken care of by now.
It would be.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming. Thank you guys for showing up with numbers. I appreciate it. Please fill out the paper. We will follow up by saying September because you know it's summertime, it's vacation time. So I want to make sure everybody that's here now can come in September. So thank you very much. I hope we give you something. I hope we get information, and I hope we can build a relationship. Thank you on behalf of the mayor.